more or less, and like they're making their way through the solar system, and like Nick Fury and Shield pick up on what's going on, so they're like, Thor, go check that out. Thor gets there, Beta Ray Bill beats the hell out of him and then takes his hammer. It's crazy. But anyway, so with the defeat of Loki coming from like Beta Ray Bill, Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, from there the question becomes like, how could this have happened? And it's Thor's search for knowledge, right? So Thor's met with the Odin Force. Those of you guys who don't know, the Odin Force is basically just the life energies of Odin combined with the life energies of his brothers Vili and V, and that's basically it. It's Marvel's way of just basically being able to say, like, we need a story where like Odin can do something that he can't normally do. And the question's like, well, how? It's like, well, I don't know, Odin Force. It's like the Speed Force from the Flash, right? You know, like, I ain't gotta explain shit. So like it's one of those crazy things when it comes to Marvel Comics. And so with the Odin Force kind of being like disembodied, it guides Thor on this spiritual journey. And what the Odin Force tells him is that in the early days of Odin's rise to power, he had to sacrifice an eye to the Well of Mimir, I think it is, in order to gain like vast amounts of knowledge. But the question is Thor willing to do that? Not only that, all Thor's going to gain is the knowledge Odin had, the same kind of power Odin had. The question is, does Thor want the same knowledge and power of Odin, or does he want more? And so the idea is like Thor wants more. He wants the full totality of everything that's going on. And so what ends up happening is Thor sacrifices both of his eyes, and he essentially gets like twice as much power as Odin has. He wields what's called the Thor Force, but it's basically the Odin Force with the Thor name. But like at that point in time, he essentially becomes God. Like he's omniscient, and like it's insane how much power he has, because imagine Odin being twice as strong as he normally is. And Odin's powerful as hell. I mean, Odin he put the hurt on Galactus. Dude, there's this like amazing scene. Dude, I can't remember what it's not J. Michael Straczynski's Thor. It's somebody else's Thor run. I can't remember what it is. In the first story arc, Odin fights against Galactus, and Galactus is like, dude, I'm so tired of Asgardians. Like, I hate these things. Like Odin like headbutts the hell out of Galactus, and I'm pretty sure like cracks his helmet. And like Galactus is like, Asgardians, you bore me. And like dude, Odin puts the hurt on him, but he uses so much energy that he has to like power down and go into the Odin sleep. But like he stands toe to toe against Galactus, which is pretty damn impressive. But still, like imagine Odin being like twice as powerful, like twice that level of power that he had in his fight against Galactus, and that's where Thor is. And so Thor is just like this like insanely powerful, omnipotent being. And so what he does is he gains all this knowledge, and he ends up realizing that like everything that's been going on with the events of Ragnarok are a cycle. It's a cyclical pattern, and Odin broke the pattern. That by whatever manner and whatever means, which Marvel teased the ideas in, what was it? It was in the last days of Loki, during the events leading up to Secret Wars. Marvel teased the idea that it was actually the Beyonders, but there was this group out there that were just called the Ones Who Sit Above in Shadow, and we didn't really know anything about them. We didn't really know where they came from or how they functioned. All we knew is that whenever Asgardians saw them, they looked like Asgardians. So it's the Galactus principle, right? Like in the Trial of Reed Richards, Marvel established that Galactus appears as whatever race lives on the planet that he's attacking. So like if Galactus shows up to the Skrull planet, he'll look like a Skrull. If he shows up to Earth, he'll look human. If he shows up on the Kree homeworld, he'll look like a Kree. It's just the mirror effect. And that's how the Ones Who Sit Above in Shadow work. But the way this happened is that somehow they came into existence, and then eventually Asgard came into existence, and then the first Ragnarok happened. And when it did, the Ones Who Sit Above in Shadow fed off all the life energy let off by the Asgardians when they all died. And then all the Asgardians came back into existence again, Asgard was recreated, and they continued on until Ragnarok happened, and the cycle repeated itself over and over and over again. And this had happened countless times. It had happened since like the dawn of the universe, or maybe even before. And so when Thor realizes that, he's like, okay, so we have to destroy the Ones Who Sit Above in Shadow, because his idea is in every single instance of Thor or of Asgard's creation and its lifespan before the events of, you know, that telling of the story, what had happened was that Thor had just lived his life on Asgard, and he had just been the Thor of traditional Norwegian mythos. But then in turn, Odin broke the cycle, and Odin said, okay, the only way to really defeat the Ones Who Sit Above in Shadow is to do something different. So that's one of the reasons he cast Thor down to Earth, also because he was kind of a dick when he was younger, but like he cast him down to Earth and said, you're gonna go live with the Earthlings, and you're gonna gain a tried and true understanding of what like right and wrong is, good and evil, and all that kind of good stuff. And so when all that happened, he basically became the Thor that we all know and love, and then returned to Asgard, and that set in motion where he is at the time of that story. And so from there, he's just kind of like, well, we have to destroy the Ones Who Sit Above in Shadow. And so using his hammer and using like the full power of the runes, which basically make him God, he smashes the tree of Idrissa, like completely shatters the tree, like after confronting the Ones Who Sit Above in Shadow, and in doing so destroys them all. And it's absolutely insane, because if what Marvel says is true, if what Marvel says is that the Ones Who Sit Above in Shadow were the Beyonders, if the events of the last days of Loki are accurate, and the Ones Who Sit Above in Shadow were the Beyonders, then by virtue of being the Rune King, Thor was at least presumably powerful enough to like frighten the Beyonders and send them running away. And so it's just kind of like, That's pretty damn powerful, especially when you consider the Beyonders were powerful enough to like annihilate the Living Tribunal. Now, I don't think it means that Rune King Thor is on par with the Living Tribunal, but still, like, it's a pretty crazy display of power. And that would never work in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because what happens when you have a version of Thor's character who's basically Rune King? You can make that argument that he's kind of that level right now, but he's not. Like, he's Thor with like the Odin Force. So like, he's half as powerful as he would be if he had like the full power of the runes, and if he was like Rune King Thor. But if he were like full on Rune King Thor, where he's like omniscient and like omnipotent and basically like indestructible, how do you make a movie with that? Like, who would you have him fight? I guess maybe you could have him fight Galactus, but like, you're talking about a character who's nigh unstoppable on like a universal level. And so at that point, then it's like who the hell's he gonna fight? You can't do a story like that. And even if you could, you'd be talking about a level of power between two beings that's easily enough to destroy entire planets or solar systems, even potential galaxies, possibly even fracture the fabric of the universe itself, or send shockwaves through it that would impact things on like an insane level. I mean, imagine that. Like, Thor goes to smash his hammer on some villain, it knocks them back and like sends ripples through the universe. And when I say ripples, I mean you can see the fabric of the universe move. Like that kind of stuff would be crazy. I mean, that level of power would be bonkers in the movies. And even in the comics, it stretches the limits of credulity, because you would think with someone rising to be that powerful, the Living Tribunal would step in, but I guess it wouldn't, because it's not like there's two versions of Thor who are Rune King running around out there. So I guess it stands, you know, it stands to reason it could happen, but still, like, you can't do a version of that character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because he's just too powerful, and you wouldn't really have anybody he could fight. I mean, if you guys think Thanos in the MCU with that power of the Infinity Gauntlet is powerful, I mean, he is, but like, imagine Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet in the Marvel Cinematic Universe fighting Rune King Thor, like the power he had in the comics. It'd be no contest, because in the MCU, Thanos is a lot weaker with the Infinity Gauntlet than he is in the comics. And the comics, it was insane. Like, it was nuts, the kind of power he had. It was crazy stuff. Like, I mean, sure, he used the Reality Stone and he messed up like Drax the Destroyer, and then he messed with Mantis and so on and so forth. But like, imagine that like during the fight with Thanos on Titan or whatever that moon was, that like Iron Man goes to attack him and he just turns him into like a pile of Iron Man toys. Like, that's the kind of stuff you saw in the events of like the Infinity Gauntlet story. It was ridiculous, like the power he possessed. But still, like Rune King Thor would be absolutely bonkers. Like, it would be an insane level of power. I would argue he could rival King Hyperion from the universe where King Hyperion destroyed all the cosmic entities and all the superheroes. Like, I'd say he could probably be that powerful. But even then, it's not consistent, because like King Hyperion destroyed Galactus and like all the cosmic entities in his own universe, and then gets beat by like Blue Marvel. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. I mean, Blue Marvel's cool. Adam Brashear's pretty badass, and like, he's an absolute hoss. Man, Blue Marvel, dude, I really want to see Adam Brashear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I wonder who would play him. If Idris Elba wasn't playing Heimdall, I'd say make him Blue Marvel. Dude, he'd be an amazing Adam Brashear. He'd be, man, like, imagine, dude, Adam Brashear, dude, I would love to see that. Like, that'd have been cool to have like an Infinity Gauntlet, right? Like in the Infinity War movie, like Thanos is about to snap his fingers, Blue Marvel just like races in, takes the gauntlet, and he's like, you're done, and then just leaves, and Thanos is just like, what? And then he just flies back and just beats the hell out of, dude, Blue Marvel would absolutely thrash Thanos from like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It'd be like child's play. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, anyway, we're going off on a tangent. We're going off on a thing. Rune King Thor, you cannot put him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just too damn powerful. It just doesn't work. Just way too extreme. Either that, or you would have to nerf the hell out of him. You have to make him a whole lot weaker, and that's just not going to fly. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.
I wouldn't last a day in today's corporate culture, specifically that in the video games or entertainment industry, as the world is changing for the worse. Offhanded remarks leading to online witch hunts, fake hurt feelings, harassment claims. This is one of the things that makes me extraordinarily happy to have my own business and have no employees too upset with my perhaps blue language at times. Now, there's been a big firing at EA. It's grabbing all the headlines in the UK, given this is somebody that works on or worked on the cash cow of FIFA. Boss of computer game giant EA fired after an American colleague on a conference call made a sexual complaint after he said the company shouldn't be about this. Let's look into the story. This is a rare situation where I feel bad for somebody at EA. The Irish head of one of the world's largest game makers was fired for telling a female colleague at the internal company discussing shouldn't be a matter of seeing who has the bigger D. A comment that could easily mean, this isn't about ego, this isn't a pissing match, this isn't, but these are the words he chose. Now, this employee was so shattered by the mention of a genital that he was fired 6 months after taking a £160,000 a year job at EA, which makes the world's most popular video games, including FIFA Soccer. The American woman he was speaking to on a conference call made a complaint of harassment due to the comments. Jeez. Lawyers for the Galway-based Jean-Philippe Grenet told the High Court yesterday his clumsy remark was intended to mean he didn't want to get into a petty dispute. Obviously. There was no way trying to make it anything more than that. He made an unfortunate remark to a female colleague over a video phone call in recent weeks and was swiftly sacked, his lawyers told the High Court. The 56-year-old French native claims the U.S.-based co-worker referred to in court as Miss S, who complained about his contact, had a negative attitude towards him from the outset and was eyeing up his $160,000 a year job. Mr. Grenet has turned to the High Court in a bid to get his dismissal reversed and wishes to make a return to work as soon as possible. He has already secured a temporary injunction to stop the company from dismissing him or appointing anyone else in his role. What? Wow, I thought companies were at-will employers. Every company I've ever worked for, and I can tell you this, Exclusively Games is an at-will employer. So if you mess up, you're gone, all right? Let it be known. By the way, I launched the Exclusively Games YouTube channel last night. I'm going to leave a link in the description below. Please come on over, subscribe, listen to this video. It's a song that was donated by a friend of the channel, YouCreep. And let's just, maybe get that watch time up. Rock it on loop. Just, do your workout routines, game to it. Just enjoy. At minimum, subscribe because we've got some interviews coming up on that channel already later this week. Anyhoozle. He was hired to run the Irish office in EA, which makes a string of widely popular games from PlayStation to Xbox, the FIFA series, and Rock Band. He promptly moved his family to Ireland to take up in the role of Bralybit company Galway, and there's a lot at stake for him, including his good name and reputation. His barrister, not going to pronounce that, told the court. Mr. Grenet claims that Miss S, with whom he had weekly video calls, has applied for his job and wanted to undermine my authority. Of course! This is why you can't have women in the world. Sorry, just kidding. Just kidding! Just kidding. Don't take that out of context. People will anyway. She felt his comment amounted to harassment, Mr. Quinn said. Mr. Grenet concedes that the remark was clumsy, inelegant, and ill-advised, but insists it was not meant to be taken literally. Of course! There's a actually said during the call on November 9th, the court heard, to another female colleague in the company, it was alleged that he told Miss S, who's based in Texas, that he wasn't going to pull his D out and put it on the table. Here. All right, that's a little spicier. But Mr. Grenay said, who's had a long and successful career until now, asserts that he actually commented that he didn't want to compare the length. This is in court. This is in court. The absolute state of electronic arts and the video game industry, honestly. He says he was first dismissed on November 14th, having admitting that he used the word D during the November 9th call. The speed and nature of his dismissal accounted to a disturbing breach of the natural justice, Mr. Quinn, SC told the judge. Mr. Grenay's mark was not a joke nor intended as such and was not directed at Miss S herself, he explained. His client was in fact trying to illustrate to Miss S that he didn't want to be into a petty dispute. Obviously, everyone knows that. With other female colleague. Mr. Grenay, the company's most senior man in Ireland, secured the job after a 4-month recruitment process and wants to stay here with his wife and children. That sucks. He moved his whole family. He has worked very hard to establish in his reputation, but he was subjected to a process that took a matter of days, almost Spanish Inquisition style, and found guilty of gross misconduct. Mr. Quinn told the court, that was a toxic type of label to attribute to anyone. It was wrong, and the only message being sent out to public is that he's done something seriously wrong. He is looking to return to work. Imagine going back to work. Imagine having to sue your former boss to get your old job back and then walking into work the next day. Like, do you think the person that you had reported to is going to be happy to see you? Do you think that they're going to want to work with you every day? By the way, I know it sounds like a lot of money. I mean, a salary of 160 pounds is pretty legitimate, okay? It's decent. But it's not like the guy was making millions of dollars a year. It's curious that it's already in the court system and that he would fight so hard to keep it. I suppose that working there is a great resume builder, and the label that he now has to carry with him, being fired for gross misconduct, is probably more of an issue, and I suppose I would agree with litigating around that. At best, this was like, I mean, come on, people. Yes, okay, it was a little spicy, but it was nowhere near what I would call harassment in any stretch of the word. And to be fired over that, why not just have a disciplinary action, right? Like 2 days off work without pay. That seems like pretty fair to me. But what the problem is, okay, is that these outrage mobs have become like aggressive witch hunt groups that you can't get rid of. And companies are so afraid to stand by their employees, GOG.com, that they just terminate people over the littlest thing. Could you imagine working for one of these companies? Imagine going to work. You get your dream job. You're working at a video game company. And you come into work, and on the first day, it's like, hey, no jokes. Don't look at any women if you're a man. If you're a woman, don't date any men at work. Don't laugh. Everyone should wear potato burlap sacks to work every day, or at least have a uniform. Imagine working this job. It sounds like it would be an absolute nightmare that you'd have to be walking on eggshells all the time. Believe me, I've heard 100 times worse in the boardroom, and I've heard worse from my own clients talking to me. This is, unfortunately, a perfect example of this culture mismatch where people outside of the video game industry, people in the real world, just want to make money. They just want to make a good product. They're not worried about looking to get offended over every little thing. For whatever reason, the video game industry is not like this. the gaming industry in general, which is why Exclusively Games YouTube channel is going to do so well in addition to the website. So make sure you're subscribed and you listen to that song a little while. We need that watch time. Anyway, this industry is disgusting. Imagine not being able to make any jokes at work or, laugh at anything or, look, where do most people meet their significant others in the real world these days? If you didn't meet them in high school or college, you're probably going to meet them at work. That's just the way it works. But in the video game industry, forget it. You can't even... Now, look, dipping your pen in company ink is ill-advised anywhere you work. But it happens. It's kind of just the natural order of things. It gets messy once in a while, but this is where we meet people because you have common interests and you're with them 8 to 10 hours a day. This is just pathetic. Pathetic behavior by EA, and whoever complained about this, they should be fired too, because imagine working with that person. Imagine being the person that was so offended by a comment on a conference call that they had to have somebody fired. Their whole family that had relocated to a different country, it sounds like. Now, what? Left behind because your Fifi's got hurt on a video conference call? Grow up, lady. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.